everyone, I'm Mahima Bantia from EduShore. Now, whenever we study so much of economics together, we study micro, macro, maths, the times that we are in has given us an opportunity to start to see the practical application of all the macroeconomic theories that we study together. हमें macroeconomics में ISLM मॉडल पढ़ते हैं, हम ओपन इकोनॉमी पढ़ते हैं, हम ADAS पढ़ते हैं. उन सब का प्रैक्टिकल एप्लीकेशन हमें अभी के टाइम में एक साउथ एशियन कंट्री से दिख रहा है, and that is none other than Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, unfortunately, is facing an economic crisis, but it is also a textbook example of everything that we study. So there are many things that are going wrong with Sri Lanka right now, and I'm sure you must have heard those terms in the newspaper. So the first thing that all of you know is that Sri Lanka doesn't have money. It doesn't have foreign exchange, right? उनके पास जो foreign exchange है, उनके पास श्रीलंकन रुपीस तो है, लेकिन क्या नहीं है, वो है foreign exchange नहीं है उनके पास, right? The thing जो आपने सुना होगा, prices. लोग क्यों इसमें खड़े हैं? मिल्क का पैकेट 200 रुपए का हो गया है, चीनी 300-400 रुपए किलो की मिल रही है. So Sri Lanka is also facing something called hyperinflation. Now, hyperinflation क्या होता है? It is the case where you are facing an inflation of more than 1% a day. That is termed as hyperinflation. Sri Lanka is facing hyperinflation. So many other things that Sri Lanka is facing. Now, हमने अपनी class, EduShore की class में Sri Lankan economy discuss की थी. So I'd like to show you a glimpse of how it went and what we and the students discussed about the situation in Sri Lanka. Please have a look.
Okay, debt trap. So by debt trap, what do we mean? So debt trap is a word where you have to pay a lot of your loans back. But how do you fall into a debt trap? By the way, if anybody is from Bengal here, if anybody is from West Bengal, do you know West Bengal is in a major debt trap? We have loans. West Bengal government has about 6 lakh crore worth of loans. Debt trap क्या होता है? That you are taking a loan, right? You are taking a loan. Now, what are you taking it for? अगर हम इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में समझे, अगर एक आदमी अपनी बेटी की शादी के लिए लोन लेता है, ठीक है, what is the problem with that? The problem with that is it doesn't really give you money to pay back the loan. Now this loan needs to be paid back from your general salary. और अगर आपकी जनरल सैलरी इतनी होती कि आप इकट्ठा करके बेटी की शादी करा पाते, तो आपको लोन की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ती. So the point is you're taking an unproductive loan and you don't really have the means to pay it off. That is a debt trap. So what has happened with Sri Lanka, it has taken these capital loans from China, where it is building its capital expenditure. So mostly ports, harbors, airports, that's the kind of things that have been built in Sri Lanka. Now I was reading that the airport that they built in Sri Lanka with the help of Chinese investments, it is probably been assigned as the emptiest airport in the world. Isn't not enough traffic. Again, the harbors and the ports, they need to be able to generate money. So China is giving you this money at cheaper interest rates, but you have to pay it back. So if you can't pay it back, then what do you have? You have a problem. So what the problem is that you have this loan on capital account, right? So you have a loan. Let's say you have a loan of whatever, $5 billion. Okay, now you have to repay back the interest. You have to repay back the loan plus interest. Now, how was Sri Lanka paying this loan back? Was it paying from the money that they earned from the investment? No. How were they paying it back? They were paying it back through the money that they earned on their current account from tourism. So let's say tourism, so they used to earn certain foreign exchange, right? That foreign exchange, so Sri Lanka is a very popular country with tourists. It's a beautiful country. That tourism foreign exchange used to go to pay back the loan. Okay, not the money generated by the investment. Then what was the second biggest source of money coming into Sri Lanka? The second biggest source was remittances. Remittances meaning Sri Lankans living outside were sending money back to Sri Lanka in their own currency. So there also they earned foreign exchange. So these two ways they earned foreign exchange and they were using to pay back the loan. Now with the pandemic, the tourism stopped. Remittances still saved them during COVID times. Okay, why did this problem not happen 1 year back? Because COVID though was at its peak that time, Delta, Omicron, but that also didn't hamper because they were able to pay or and they it's not just loans that they had to pay for, they also had to pay for their imports. So it's a small country, right? It needs to import a lot of things. They had to pay for oil, a lot of things they have to pay for which they need foreign exchange. Now, where does that dollars come from? From tourism, remittances, and exports, right? Now, when the pandemic struck, tourism stopped, but remittances and exports saved them. Now, what happened was that with the government not controlling its expenses, so when your sources of income come down, you have to control, you have to stop your expenses. It's the same with West Bengal government. If their sources of income are coming down, they have to stop their expenses. But what the government did not stop their expenses. So this component, loan component, interest component kept on increasing, right? And this, so this, what they resorted to then, they started printing money. When they started printing money, the value of the currency went down. When they started printing money, the value of currency fell. So what happened then? Remittances stopped. Because people saw that, array, I am sending 100 rupees back to my home country. My parents are receiving 50 rupees. So I will not send back money right now. Let the country stabilize. Let the exchange rate stabilize. Tourism stopped. Remittances stopped. Now they did not have foreign exchange to pay for the things that they needed. Okay, so and then that's when the cycle started. When they stopped having currency, they couldn't pay for their oil, they couldn't pay for their imports. So I've heard that they don't have, exams are cancelled in Sri Lanka because there's no paper to hold exams. You must have all heard of the power cuts in Sri Lanka. There is no electricity. So there's no electricity, there's no business. People are not getting their daily wages also. There is very less oil. I mean, India has extended a credit line, and so other countries may have also done. So they have some oil left, but everything is rationed. You have to stand in queues for everything. That's the situation right now. So it's a completely man-made situation of balancing your accounting, balancing your budget, of the government being completely irresponsible regarding the needs of the people. Okay, so this is that's the situation of Sri Lanka right now. And the next question would obviously be how do you get out of it, and the way to get out of it. And also, of course, when this government came, the Sri Lankan current government came, they said that we will reduce taxes, increase expenses, same thing as what West Bengal has, increase expenses and reduce taxes. So what does that do? It doesn't leave the government with money. If you don't have money, then what do? You have to take more loans. Okay, so that is the problem, that their expenses are high. They reduce taxes. They abolished what is that called? Tax deducted at source. In India also we have this concept of TDS. 10% is the TDS. Whatever you earn, you have to give TDS on that. They abolished that. No TDS. Okay, so high corruption, less taxes, more expenses. What is going to happen to that country? Okay, so the only way to come out of it is to restructure the economy, reduce their expenses, try to increase exports, try to subsidize exports on foreign exchange, increase some taxes, tax the rich, tax whoever they can. So they have to start restructuring their economy completely. They need to be responsible. They need to be responsible towards their own country. When India opened up in 1991, even we had an exchange rate crisis because we were importing so much, we weren't exporting enough. What is going to happen? So we had to open up. So one thing also that the Sri Lankan government didn't do was go to the IMF, because IMF makes sure that you restructure your economy not just take a loan. So it resisted going to IMF because it did not want to change the way it lived, and it took maybe more loan from China, some credit line from the US, something from India, but did not want to go to the IMF. Now it has to go. It doesn't have any option. But the IMF will make you change your economy. It will make you change the way you function. You will have to commit to a certain fiscal deficit, a certain inflation rate. You cannot just do whatever you want. So because of that, the Sri Lankan government wasn't really going to the IMF, but now it has to. It doesn't have any option. And by the way, the last point on this, this practical example was that it's not the first nation to be going through this. Many nations have gone through this. So how did the IMF restructure the Indian economy? We opened investments from outside. So that gave us foreign capital. We reduced our import rates, export rates. So that opened our export sector, and many other things that the IMF makes you do so that you can tide over your crisis. So you have to, as I said, you have to commit to balancing your trade, balancing your budgets, a certain monetary policy. You can't just you can't just print money excessively. You have to commit to a certain inflation rate and so on. So they make you do certain things to tighten your economy. You can't just do whatever you want. That's the problem with the current Sri Lankan government also. It is doing whatever it wants, regardless of where it is taking the economy. So you can't do that anymore. Okay, so yeah, the last question, the last bit that I want to say before I move on is that there are many countries which have gone through a bad phase in the past. In fact, when I was reading, I realized that so many countries in the West, be it Germany, be it United States, have had this phase where they've gone through very bad macroeconomic situation. Zimbabwe, correct? Many countries, Greece is one example that is going through a bad macroeconomic situation. So countries can tide over it. Okay, we are, there are systems in place that you can tide over it, but of course the willingness of the government to cooperate has to be there. If not, then this situation just prolongs itself and just continues. So it has to be, which is why I think the president of Sri Lanka must go, and someone who's so I was reading the previous prime minister's interview. He obviously will say everything is the fault of this government, but he did say that we were a surplus country, and how did we get there? It was just mismanagement, and I can believe that because Sri Lanka was a well-to-do country. Actually, it has very high literacy levels. It has very high education levels. It has a high life expectancy. It's a good country. It's doing well. So this shouldn't have happened. It is just gross mismanagement of funds and nothing else. So this Sri Lanka is economics. What you study is what what could have been avoided in Sri Lanka. So if you have studied how money supply relates to inflation, how money supply can lead to depreciation, you have read about balancing your accounts, you've read about everything. So it's a textbook case. So you must study it, and you must study the Sri Lankan economy. You must read some articles on it, and how you will be able to relate what was happening with what you have studied in the models that we did in class.
Found the video useful and would like to share it with your friends, then click on like, share and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the video.